Today, we move away from fights of brutal men and look at the career of an equally brutal woman. If there is a female fighter whom every fan remembers, then it's Ronda Rousey. Although she ended her career more than 5 years ago, no star of equal caliber among UFC women has emerged since. Together, we will return to the era of Ronda Rousey and remind you just how good she was. Ronda's mother, Anne-Marie DeMars, was the first American world champion in judo. Early in Ronda's childhood, it was clear she would have ambitious goals ahead of her in the shadow of her mother. Ron Rousey, Ronda's father, suffered from spinal problems for years. The doctors did not give him much time, as he was constantly on the verge of paralysis. Ron was once found suffocated by the exhaust fumes of his own car. At age 6, Ronda took up swimming, but gave up the sport after the death of her father. Training in the pool provided a lot of time for abstract thoughts. Instead, she much preferred her time on the tatami, where she had to maintain constant motion and concentrate on every aspect of technique, requiring tight, focused thought. Ronda immediately fell in love with judo. 1 month into the start of her training, Rousey squared off in her first fight. Frightened of the large gym, Rousey stood at the edge of the tatami, nervously crumpling her belt. Her mother set her at ease with one phrase: "You can win." From that moment on, weakness for Ronda became unacceptable. She won the tournament by finishing all her fights with Japanese neckties. But 2 weeks later, she learned the taste of defeat, complete with the taste of maternal disappointment. Anne-Maria has set clear rules for her children in and out of the home. Applying wrestling skills was strictly prohibited, excluding self-defense. Yet Ronda periodically got into fights. One day, she threw a boy on the asphalt as he was trying to grab her. Another time, Ronda beat a girl who dared to push her. Although the administration wanted to suspend Ronda, Anne-Maria explained to the school psychologist in her own manner why Rousey was undeserving of suspension. If Ronda was punished, the school would have to deal with her mother. The next day, the young judoka returned to her studies. She grew rapidly. At 13 years old, she accidentally broke her mother's wrist while training. At 17, she became the youngest American woman to qualify for the Olympics. She lost her first match in Athens to future vice champion Claudia Hale. But in the same year, she won the World Junior Championships. Then there was a new Olympic cycle. After a silver at the 2007 World Judo Championship in Rio and a gold at the 2007 Pan American Games, it was time for the Beijing Olympics. In the tournament, the 21-year-old Rousey lost to the world and European champion Edith Bosch. In the double elimination bracket, she reached the bronze medal match against the German judoka Annette Brahm. The American won by 9 points, earning her country's first ever Olympic medal in women's judo. Although 21-year-old Rousey medaled in Beijing, she felt that her path through judo was over. After Beijing, she was completely at a loss. Although money from the Olympic Committee was enough to rent an apartment, Rousey was without professional skills. She treaded water as a waitress and bartender. But in due course, Rousey began her pursuit of MMA, due in part to relationships with Manny Gamburian and Caro Parisian, whom she often trained with as a teenager. Ronda followed the fighting career of Armenian judokas, and after the Olympics continued to train with them in the High Stand MMA Hall, as well as the Glendale Fighting Club under the leadership of Edmond Tervadian. It was 2010. The career of Gina Carano had already died down. Women's fights finally came out of the underground and were waiting for their new superstar. After winning 3 amateur fights, Rousey made her professional debut at the King of the Cage tournament, ending this fight with an elbow lever in 25 seconds. After 2 wins, Rousey had signed a contract with the second promotion of the world, Strikeforce. Her debut against Sarah D'Alelio was a little botched, as the referee stopped the fight, deciding that Rousey was injured. And although she did not agree with the decision, the result stood. In the next fight, her opposition was already more serious. Ronda faced future Bellator champion Julia Budd. Rousey immediately rushed into the clinch, and as soon as the women were on the floor, the end came quickly. Strikeforce opened up the prospect of two big fights for Ronda, with the featherweight champion Chris Cyborg and the bantamweight champion Miesha Tate. The question was resolved by itself. Cyborg failed the doping test and earned a disqualification. For years, fans would eagerly await that fight, but Rousey preferred to stay in the comfortable division of up to 61 kilograms. Tate and Rousey launched a long-time media war in which they did not skimp on statements.
Everything about her is better on paper. Her fights look better on paper. Photos look better on paper than she does in person. Her trash talking looks much better on paper than it actually is if you listen to her talk.
No talking happens in the cage. Time to shut up and throw fists and see who really has the heart and the will. You know, you can talk all you want, but actions speak louder than words.
My first Strikeforce fight, that flying armbar that I did.
Wow, there it is, looking for the armbar.
I never practiced it once in my life. Just for some reason, I see.
I will have the better, more well-rounded game, and I think that wrestling trumps judo 9 times out of 10.
Whenever she is forced to look me in the eye, I see her shrink a little bit.
I just want to see her break inside the cage.
Every other person that I fought knew what was going to happen, and they couldn't do anything about it, and there's nothing she can do about it.
In the cage, the athletes fought uncompromisingly. Tate rushed forward with punches. Ronda responded with a throw. Miesha defended well on the floor. She defended herself from the first lever and ended up on top. Tate even managed to take Rousey's back. She was not going to yield to Ronda in the fight.
Generally trying to scramble, trying to reverse, backdoor escape by Rousey. Tate.
When Rousey got up, her opponent was the first to try to move her to the ground.
Tate.
In the stance, Miesha also felt confident until she forgot about the defense.
There she goes. And again.
Now momentum was in the hands of Ronda. She arched Miesha's joint in the opposite direction.
Oh, she's gonna break it. She had to tap. I mean, she had to tap.
The arm's gone right there. It's going the wrong direction.
But Miesha will not give up. You know, she broke her leg on that boys wrestling team in high school, and she can't.
Ronda won not only the championship belt, but also the title of the main woman in MMA. Strikeforce had already been bought by the Fertitta brothers and was living out its last months, and its queen had an incredible takeoff. In 2011, in an interview with Dana White, he categorically said that they would never have UFC women's fights. A year later, the categories changed. Before the final takeover of Strikeforce, he admitted, the only reason women show up in the UFC is Ronda Rousey.
In the next 10 years, if there's a woman in the octagon, it's probably going to be Ronda Rousey.
Ronda has proven to be perfect for promoting the sport. She was the Iron Mike of women's MMA. Fast, spectacular, and angry. She diligently worked not only on the skills, but also on the image, an expressive look, hard rock during the exit, a crowned smile at the weigh-in, leather jackets, and tight-fitting dresses with a neckline. With wide-ranging popularity, a powerful charge of feminism was added.
It doesn't come easy, you know, and you're gonna have to work twice as hard to get, you know, half as much as respect, and you're just gonna have to work harder and harder and harder all the time. You're a girl. It's harder to be a girl in this sport than it is to be a guy, and just don't allow anyone to make you feel unwelcome. You have a right to be there.
After defending the Strikeforce belt from Sarah Kaufman, she finally made the slide over to UFC, the first women's fight in the history of the organization. Her fight against Liz Carmucci. The veteran of the Marine Corps immediately had to face the onslaught of the champion, but she was ready. Ronda transferred her to the ground. 7 fights, 7 armbar wins in the first round. 2 championship titles from 2 of the largest organizations. Only 2 of 7 opponents survived longer than the first minute. Ronda is at the top. Shooting for magazines began. An offer to act in films and TV. Ronda became the coach of the first women's Ultimate Fighter, while the opposing team was coached by Miesha Tate. They came together in revenge at UFC 168, simultaneously warming up to the confrontation stronger than before. Ronda immediately found the moment to throw. In the clinch, she became even more dangerous, as in the ground pounder technique. Miesha did not sit idle, but on the ground, she was still noticeably inferior to the champion. Another thing is the stance. Here, Tate looked no worse, but she wanted to defeat Rousey in her element. The fight extended beyond round one for the first time in Ronda's career. The champion effectively threw her opponent, exhausted her at the cage, and again looked for a moment for a takedown. She stalks, ready for an armbar. Tate escaped. One more try. Failure again. The fight came to the second break. Ultimately, Ronda performed her crown lever of the elbow. Rousey was often criticized for fighting a lower level of competition. Indeed, none of her rivals were stars before joining MMA, with the exception of Sarah McMahon, the world champion and Olympic medalist in freestyle wrestling. She immediately made it clear that it would not work to throw her. Ronda decided, well, no need. After that, the striking power of Ronda was tested with another challenger, Alexis David. The fight lasted 16 seconds. At the beginning of 2014, it was possible to upload videos on Instagram up to 15 seconds long. Ronda joked that she wanted her fights to fit in there. It seemed that Ronda faced her most difficult challenge when confronting Kat Zingano. The undefeated challenger carried a 9-0 record, with wins against Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes. The fight took Ronda 14 seconds. Again, fit for Instagram. That's the fifth defense of the UFC belt that Ronda could upload completely to the social network. Success built her self-confidence. She began talking seriously about fighting men, maybe with Mayweather or even Velasquez. She found support from both Dana White and Joe Rogan, who emotionally replied that Ronda could beat half the men's bantamweight division. Not that those words should be taken seriously, but one thing was clear. Among women, Ronda did not see any rivals for herself. The fight with Beth Correa only strengthened Rousey's belief in her own invincibility, and most importantly, in her own striking technique. Even more surreal was that Brazilian fans supported Ronda Rousey. The fight against Correa took place in Brazil, her home territory, and for the first time in the history of the UFC, local fans supported not a compatriot, but a guest, the champion. Ronda became the best female athlete at the ESPYs, receiving more votes than Serena Williams. Her photo appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated. The last time an MMA fighter was so lucky was in 2007. A Business Insider called Rousey the strongest athlete alive. Her MMA record reached 12-0. All victories were met ahead of schedule, and only one fight exceeded round 1. It was difficult for her not to believe everything that was said about her, and Ronda believed. Holly Holm, the world boxing champion in 3 weight categories, came to the MMA at the same time as Rousey and spent 2 years combining performances in the cage and in the ring. Mixed martial arts turned out to be more promising. Ronda paved the way for women to enter the UFC. Soon the promotion had signed a contract with Holm. They started talking about the fight between the two champions right away, but the nondescript victories of the preacher's daughter in the first meetings made her a huge underdog. The betting line was 9-1 in favor of Rousey. Not long before the fight, Ronda's photo was posted on the cover of The Ring, main boxing magazine. She became the first MMA fighter to appear on the cover of a magazine called The Boxing Bible. Even U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump mentioned her name several times in interviews to draw attention to his campaign. Ronda's response was tough. "I would not vote for Trump and trust him to run my country. I don't want to go into the details, but I am opposed to a reality TV star ruining my country." So with the status of international superstar, Rousey entered the Australian octagon, setting a UFC ticket sales record. The stadium was filled with 56,242 spectators. Ronda took the center of the cage and went forward. Holm was good enough on counterattacks. She moved well, and the champion simply could not catch up with her. Finally, Ronda went into a clinch, but Holly was ready. The contender felt the distance perfectly, defended herself confidently on the ground, but Rousey herself continued to bump into almost all the punches. She miserably lost the first round of her career. The coach in the corner kept repeating, "Everything is fine."
Beautiful word. Listen to me. Okay?
Holm continued to throw blows at a distance, and the end was near. The high kick of the preacher's daughter ended Ronda Rousey's soaring career in an instant, falling so hard that she could no longer rise. After the defeat, Rousey disappeared from the media space entirely. The same Trump, like many celebrities, gloated on his Twitter, glad to see Ronda Rousey lost her championship fight last night, was soundly beaten, not a nice person. Dana White rushed to defend his most profitable athlete. Ronda is still a bigger star than Conor, and he didn't lie. The Irishman had only just climbed to the top, and Rousey spent years upon it. White really was eager to return her to the octagon, although Ronda was going through a serious depression. The psychological damage was stronger than physical. Substantially, Rousey confessed that she even thought about suicide. It was important for a fighter in Ronda's position to recover, eliminate mistakes, lower the level of stress, and regain confidence. It turned out to be more important for White and her manager to make money here and now, throwing Ronda immediately on the champion, Amanda Nunes. Ronda's fighting career was over. Don't worry about Ronda, however. She found herself in World Wrestling Entertainment and happily lives on her ranch with Travis Brown. Rousey conquered various hurdles and accomplished many achievements on her way to MMA. The first UFC champion, the first female fighter to appear on the cover of a major sports publication, fastest female finish, 6 early title defenses in a row, and just as Holyfield, Lewis, and Bowe followed Tyson in boxing, Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko followed Ronda. Rousey could no longer dominate in the sport and decided that fighting was no longer for her, and yet she remains a UFC legend. After Rousey, women entered the cage, some better than her, but none brighter than her. If you like this video format, then please do not forget to click on the thumbs up, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel. Take care.